On my birthday, I discovered an incredible surprise from my family that transformed everything for me. Tucked away in the dusty attic, an old wooden box emerged from obscurity, inviting whispers of forgotten dreams. I wiped away years of neglect to reveal its worn edges, the weight of anticipation pressing against my heart. Inside, I found letters and blueprints, my grandfather's hidden legacy of carpentry. My fingers trembled as I read his bold strokes of genius, revolutionary plans for sustainable homes, a mastery I thought was lost to time. Did I really want to dive into this world? Or was I merely escaping the suffocating confines of my current job, sketching lifeless advertising layouts that drained my spirit? Being 32 and feeling like a ghost in my own life was crushing. Each day, I walked the familiar halls of my childhood home, longing for purpose, overwhelmed by the surrounding silence that echoed with unrealized potential. It felt easier to doodle dreams I dared not chase, to let my creativity flicker like a dying flame. I hesitated. My mind raced with images of my peers, their laughter mingling with dismissive scoffs. Could a graphic designer like me truly pursue carpentry? The small-town mentality enveloped me, reminding me of how they craved stability over adventure. What would they say? Wasn't I foolish to consider stepping into my grandfather's shoes? He fought against the odds, crafting a legacy while confronting the prejudices of an era past. I felt a sudden surge of pride as I wondered if I could honor that fight, or if my attempts would just lead to more derision. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mom's voice echoed in my head, tinged with concern. Emma, you should be stable. You've got a good job, she'd remind me, her tone steady but carrying the weight of our unspoken tensions. The worry in her eyes would pierce through my resolve. What did she know of my dreams? Each conversation became a thread of tension, fraying at the edges as I fought against her practicality with my desire for the extraordinary. As doubt clouded my mind, an unexpected twist appeared. An email from that renowned architect, a man who once dismissed my potential. He reached out, sensing a spark I hadn't believed existed within me. Suddenly, the possibility of engaging in his groundbreaking projects became a lifeline. Was it too good to be true? The prospect hung tantalizingly close, yet the fear of venturing into the unknown paralyzed me. Caught between newfound ambition and my family's expectations, the day of the project unveiling loomed like a storm about to break. My heart thudded in my chest, and I felt as if I were teetering on the precipice of choice. Success or failure played out in terrifying clarity, the stakes never more apparent. I stood at this crossroads, my grandfather's legacy brushing against my fingertips, yet the shadows of doubt wrapped tightly around my throat. What if I failed? What if I lost everything? The fear pressed against my chest like a vice. Would I embrace the chance, or slip back into the echo of unfulfilled dreams? Emma sat at the small desk cluttered with remnants of her past, a collection of design mock-ups, crumpled sketches of homes she had never built, and the glowing blueprints left by her grandfather. Each item carried weight, not just of materials, but of possibilities. Was she really ready to dive into the legacy of carpentry that felt like a tether to a life she had almost forgotten? The email from the architect loomed large in her mind, much like a lighthouse guiding her through the fog of uncertainty. With every agonizing tick of the clock, she grew increasingly agitated. It had once been easy to deflect ambitions into the comfort of routine. Another day at the design firm, another uninspired project completed, and yet she still craved more. The idea of transitioning felt like standing on a precipice, peering into an abyss that could either be a plunge into passion or the downfall of her carefully curated existence. She took a deep breath and opened her laptop again, staring at the email. The opportunity to work on something that promised to marry her design skills with her newfound passion. Responding felt like a leap into the unknown. What if the architect sensed her hesitation, her lack of traditional experience in carpentry? Would he see through the facade of confidence she had cultivated in front of her peers? As her fingers hovered over the keyboard, she felt an undeniable pull toward her grandfather's legacy. She envisioned the homes he had crafted, not just structures, but spaces imbued with purpose and sustainability. For him, every hammer strike was a statement against the constraints of his time. Could she adopt that same spirit of rebellion against mediocrity? The thought ignited a flame within her. Suddenly her fears felt smaller compared to the vastness of potential. She imagined standing in a room she had designed, filled with sunlight and laughter, a family thriving under a roof that she had helped build. It was a vision that replaced her doubts with courage, shifting the fear that paralyzed her into an urge to create. Emma decided to take the plunge. She opened a new email and typed out her response, her heartbeat echoing in sync with each word. She infused her message with a mix of enthusiasm and vulnerability, explaining her background, her desire to connect her design work with carpentry, and her willingness to learn. Perhaps this could be the foothold she needed to step into a world that enveloped her grandfather's dreams she had now adopted as her own. Pressing send felt momentous, a symbolic break from the past that had held her captive for so long. Yet, it was also vulnerable, like standing on that precipice, exposing her deepest desires to the world. As she leaned back in her chair, the weight of uncertainty transformed into an exhilarating blend of anticipation and dread. The response came swiftly, showering her with both excitement and anxiety. The architect had agreed to meet her, intrigued by her passion and enthusiasm. But the meeting would come with a catch. He wanted to see her first tangible attempts at integrating her design sensibility with carpentry. This was no longer a casual conversation, but a clear challenge that demanded her growth. Emma's mind raced with thoughts of the tools, the workspaces, and the skills she would need to hone. Sufficiently sparked, she felt fear flare again, but this time it was not a vice around her chest, but a flame urging her to forge ahead. She gathered the blueprints and letters once more, examining each detail, ready to breathe new life into them with her ideas. As she booked a workshop across town, a newfound determination filled the cracks of uncertainty. In doing so, she realized that she wasn't merely stepping into her grandfather's shoes. She was ready to carve her own path in his footsteps. And yet, a lingering question remained unanswered. Would she truly unlock her hidden potential, or would she crumble under the weight of expectation? With everything set into motion, Emma prepared to embrace a world that would demand the best of her, knowing that the moment of truth would come soon. Could she face the challenge of giving flesh to her artistic vision? The unavoidable barrier of self-doubt reared its intimidating head again, whispering the familiar concerns of past failures. What awaited her in that workshop would not only reveal her skills, but possibly shatter her perception of self-worth. As she drove toward her new beginnings, the urgency of what lay ahead quickened her pulse. The true test of her resolve was just around the corner. The workshop was a modest building tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, its peeling paint and rusted tools echoing stories untold. As Emma stepped through the creaking door, she felt the weight of expectation settle heavily on her shoulders. The smell of sawdust and wood shavings enveloped her, both familiar and foreign, igniting memories of childhood afternoons spent in her grandfather's workshop. The air hummed with the promise of new beginnings, yet it was laced with the tension of her own self-doubt. She had arrived early, wanting to soak in the atmosphere before the other participants came in. Her eyes wandered over the benches littered with tools, chisels, hammers, clamps, each meticulously organized yet seemingly chaotic in their purpose. With one hand clutching her sketchbook, she walked over to a dusty workbench where a few faded photographs lay scattered. Those images, she realized, could have been of her grandfather, deeply engrossed in his work, his brow furrowed with focus. There was a vitality in those moments she wanted to reclaim. The instructor, a burly man with a thick beard and a broad smile, greeted Emma with a firm handshake. "Welcome. Today we'll blend design and craftsmanship. Are you ready to dig in?" His enthusiasm was palpable, yet it sent a ripple of anxiety through her. Could she match his energy? Would her design ideas be met with skepticism from someone steeped in tradition? As the class filled with creative individuals of varying ages and backgrounds, Emma began to feel a blend of inspiration and intimidation. Each person seemed to carry their own set of ambitions, some veterans in carpentry, others like her, stepping into the unknown. She observed her classmates, their hands deftly wielding tools, effortlessly crafting projects that coalesced seamlessly with their visions. The disparity between their confidence and her nervousness loomed larger as she battled against her self-critical thoughts. The instructor announced that they would start by constructing a simple wooden stool, combining both structure and design. Emma's heart raced. It was not just a project, but a manifestation of her inner conflict, a test of not only her skills, but her belief in herself. As they gathered materials, she felt the weight of expectations transform into a quiet determination. Her sketches of a stool danced in her mind, a minimalist design complemented by intricate details that spoke of elegance and purpose. Could she translate that concept into reality? The task began, and she fumbled at first, her fingers awkwardly gripping the unfamiliar tools, each miscalibration of a joint echoing her uncertainty. Frustration threatened to bubble to the surface, but she closed her eyes and recalled her grandfather's words whispered through her childlike imagination. Mistakes pave the way to mastery. Could she adopt that mindset? With that thought as her anchor, she persevered. Hours blended into each other, punctuated by moments of triumph when a piece fit perfectly and despair when things went wrong. Each challenge began to reveal hidden strengths within her. With every misaligned joint she adjusted, every measurement recalibrated, she started to feel a flicker of empowerment. Who knew she could visualize and physically create this solitary piece of furniture that felt connected to her family history, yet embodied her future aspirations? But it wasn't just the task itself. It was the realization of her capacity to adapt and learn, transforming the very essence of the wooden frame into a space of possibility. And then came the moment of truth. Nearing completion, she finally stepped back to appreciate her work. The stool emerged as a solid representation of her ideals, a union of innovative design and sturdy craftsmanship. Yet, as she stood there, immersed in the brief euphoria of achievement, an unsettling thought began to weave itself into her consciousness. Would this project truly speak to her spirit, or was she still merely skimming the surface of her potential? Before she could delve deeper into the growing uncertainty, the instructor announced a group critique. Emma's heart pounded as they began discussing each project, both praising the craftsmanship and identifying flaws. Suddenly, she found herself facing her peers, vulnerability exposed, and the weight of her self-imposed expectations felt suffocating. This was not merely about carpentry. It was a confrontation with her intrinsic beliefs about her capabilities. As they approached her creation, she braced for their observations, waiting to hear if she would be validated or challenged. But one thing became crystal clear. The time had come to confront her fears of acceptance and rejection head-on. Would she honor her vision, despite potential critique? Or would she allow doubt to drown her out once again? Seconds felt like hours as their attention fixed upon her work, and Emma held her breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The room fell into a hushed stillness as her classmates' eyes focused on Emma's stool. A mix of curiosity and judgment swirled around her, amplifying her trepidation. Each second felt like a relentless tick of the clock, amplifying her heartbeat, each glance leaving a trail of doubt in its wake. The instructor leaned closer, assessing the work with a discerning eye. Emma's palms grew clammy as her mind spiraled through different scenarios. What if they saw the flaws she was already painfully aware of? What if they didn't see the vision she had bled into every carving? "What strikes me about this piece," the instructor began, turning his gaze toward the class, "is its clean lines that suggest both elegance and function. It's not just a stool. It has a personality." The whisper of relief spread through Emma like a soothing balm, but she quickly quelled it. She still had to hear the rest. What they might say next could just as easily pull the rug out from under her. "It's surprising to see such depth in a first project," someone from the back piped in, and Emma felt her heart lighten momentarily. A cascade of critiques followed, with classmates offering a litany of insights, some praising her design choices while others questioned specific elements. Emma's shoulders tightened with every comment that felt too harsh or too critical. Yet in that tension, she discerned a thread of clarity. A classmate noted how the stool possessed potential for alternative uses, hinting at her design's adaptability. Listening closely, Emma's analytical mind began to whir. Critical feedback began to morph from a source of anxiety into raw material, something she could shape and refine. With each critique, she was sent into a power shift where she comprehended that this moment was less about assessing her worth and more about increasing her knowledge. This was growth, although painful in parts, undeniably constructive. As the critique wrapped up and the instructor returned his focus to Emma, she steeled herself for his final comments. "I encourage you to experiment with the proportions next time," he said. "Play with balance and perhaps think of how you could elevate your next design to make it even more engaging. Design is an exploration." His words rang in her head, an invitation rather than a chastisement. She felt an exhilarating rush. This was not merely about what she lacked, but about the endless possibilities for improvement, a call to arms for her creative spirit. After the critique, the workshop buzzed with excitement as everyone began to discuss their next projects. Emma felt a sense of belonging that had been lacking earlier. Ideas sparked, and her aspiration to further explore design began to take root. As she cleaned up her workspace, the atmosphere was charged with hopeful anticipation. Yet she wasn't unaware of the creeping shadows of her insecurity. The moment of validation felt intoxicating, but it was already slipping away, buried under layers of self-doubt. She realized she had transformed indeed. But would she remain anchored in this new self-perception, or would she slip back into her old patterns of second-guessing? The day's success sparked a new fire within her, yet it dared to expose the conflicting elements of her identity. Was she a creator who could proudly hold space for her vision, or a hesitant dreamer waiting for approval? As she browsed through her sketchbook that evening, ideas began to flow more freely. Deep down, she recognized that she was perched at the precipice of something monumental, if only she could be brave enough to leap. The next project was brewing in her mind, a design that would push her limits, one that invited risk and vulnerability. But as she reflected on her potential and the journey ahead, a sudden fear gripped her heart. Had she truly absorbed the lessons of this workshop, or was she merely constructing walls around her potential once more? The raging thoughts intertwined between inspiration and doubt drew her deeper into contemplation. Emma realized she had a crucial decision to make. Would she dare to confront her fears by taking an unwavering step into the unknown? What radical changes awaited her just beyond the threshold of her comfort zone? Emma awoke the next morning, sunlight streaming through her window, but her heart felt heavy with lingering uncertainty. The critique from the day before resonated with her, an echo of both encouragement and challenge. She swung her legs off the bed, her resolve beginning to solidify. She would embrace this opportunity and transform it into action. The thought of her next project loomed large in her mind. It wouldn't simply be another stool, it would be an extension of herself, a manifestation of her ambitions and her fears. She couldn't help but recall the instructor's words, "Design is an exploration," as she rummaged through her sketchbook for inspiration. This time she decided, she wouldn't shy away from risk. Emma reached for a pencil and sketched a series of fluid lines, playing with organic forms that intertwined, each one representing a facet of her identity. In every curve and angle, she tried to capture the blend of strength and vulnerability that she felt. It was exhilarating, but also terrifying. Every stroke was like stepping off a cliff, exposing her thoughts to the critical eyes of others. However, if she truly wanted to grow, she would have to plunge into this creative abyss. Her ideas flourished throughout the morning. With each sketch completed, she felt a surge of empowerment. This was her chance to redefine her perspective, to dare to be bold. The final sketch emerged as a sculptural chair, unexpectedly whimsical yet practical, evoking both elegance and approachability. She envisioned it gracing a cozy reading nook, becoming a favorite spot for people to gather and share stories. Yet, as she admired her creation, a voice crept back into her mind, whispering doubts. What if it wasn't enough? What if her peers, her instructor, saw her work as naive? The familiar claws of self-doubt tightened around her thoughts. Determined not to give in, she captured the rawness of her emotions on paper. She started writing a personal manifesto, words of affirmation, a declaration of her intent to explore and not retreat. The project was due in weeks, and she knew the deadlines would only amplify her fears. But the promise of learning and creating further confirmed her resolve. She decided to take a risk that felt monumental. She would share her sketches with one of her classmates, a fellow designer named Lucas, whose work she admired, but whose confidence overshadowed her own. Although the thought ignited a flicker of anxiety, the prospect of collaboration also ignited an ember of motivation. That evening, she reluctantly texted Lucas, asking if they could meet to discuss ideas. To her surprise, he responded enthusiastically. They agreed to meet at a local cafe known for its bohemian vibe, a spot where creativity flowed as freely as the espresso. As she prepared for their meeting, a jolt of apprehension coursed through her. This wasn't merely about sharing ideas. It was an opportunity to lay bare her intentions and vulnerabilities. Would he see her vision as worthwhile? Shuddering at the thought, she shook off the fear and donned her favorite jacket, a talisman of sorts that always made her feel more confident. As she stepped out, the evening breeze washed over her, invigorating her resolve. Emma understood that this opportunity came with risk, yet it was a risk she felt prepared to face. Her heart raced as she entered the cafe. The crowd buzzed with chatter, each table a haven of creativity. She scanned the room, searching for Lucas. What if he was already there, judging her before they even spoke? But everything changed when she caught sight of him, sketching in a notepad, absorbed in his world. Suddenly, she realized she wasn't just an ordinary student. She was an emerging designer, about to expose her heart to someone she respected. Moments like these could redefine her path. But as she approached, steeling herself for a bold leap, an unsettling question tugged at her mind. Was she stepping towards collaboration and growth, or simply setting herself up for yet another opportunity to shrink back in disappointment? The air around her felt thick with possibility, and as Emma crossed the distance between doubt and courage, she knew she was about to navigate a pivotal moment in her journey. The minutes felt like hours as Emma approached the table where Lucas sat, his pencil dancing across the page. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this encounter was about growth, not comparison. With every step, she weighed the exhilaration of vulnerability against the dread of judgment. "Hey, Lucas," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. He looked up, his blue eyes brightening as a smile broke across his face. "Emma, so good to see you. I can't wait to hear what you've been working on." His enthusiasm gave her a brief surge of confidence. It was a welcome antidote to the anxiety swirling in her gut. They settled into a cozy corner, the busy cafe surrounding them with laughter and conversation. Emma laid her sketches on the table, spreading them out like a deck of cards. Each one felt like a piece of her soul laid bare. "Wow," Lucas said, leaning in for a closer look. "These are beautiful. You've got a real sense of flow here." His genuine response melted some of her apprehension, but the shadows of self-doubt still loomed. "Thanks, but She hesitated, her heart somersaulting. "I'm worried that they're too... different?" "Different is good," he replied, his grin widening. "That's where innovation happens." His belief in her work felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, yet she worried it was a hopeful illusion. As they discussed design concepts, Lucas opened up about his own insecurities, revealing struggles that mirrored her own. "I often compare myself to others," he confessed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sometimes it paralyzes me." Sharing this vulnerability sparked something within Emma. They were younger mentors navigating their insecurities, both grappling with their ambitions and fears. The conversation shifted from mere critique to a collaborative exchange of ideas, flowing freely alongside the coffee spiced with cinnamon. She found herself laughing at his anecdotes and watching as they fused their concepts into something new and exciting. "I love this idea of a chair embodying storytelling," he punctuated, gesturing to her sketches. "What if it had a removable cover, something tactile that people could touch and interact with?" The thought held a magnetic pull for Emma. She could almost envision it taking shape, resonating with people beyond her original intent. "That could invite a deeper connection," she said, her voice gaining strength. Ideas cascaded between them, creating a whirlpool of creativity that felt transformative. As they brainstormed tirelessly, a realization washed over Emma. This was no longer merely a project, it was a shared exploration, a communion of creativity that melded her drive with Lucas's assurance. It felt liberating. After hours of flying ideas, Emma felt a tide shift within her. The nagging doubts that had gripped her in the past were dissipating into the air, replaced by a newfound clarity. She was not just surviving in this environment, she was thriving. Yet beneath her exhilaration, strands of uncertainty lingered. Would this collaboration translate into success? What if their combined efforts fell flat? The atmosphere began to dim as the cafe buzzed with conversations tapering off around them, but she couldn't shake the energy that swelled inside. Lucas's pen tapped against the table, idly measuring the connection they had forged. "Emma, there's something special here," he said thoughtfully, meeting her gaze. "I think we could create something that really resonates with people. Are you in?" Her heart pounded with an intoxicating mix of fear and excitement. Was she ready to fully commit to this partnership and embrace the risks that came with it? The prospect of this endeavor invoking both curiosity and dread. But before she replied, an unexpected visitor burst into the cafe, a familiar face that stole her breath away. Emma's stomach twisted tightly as she recognized him, someone from her past who had long been a source of her biggest insecurities. What would this confrontation mean for the work she had just begun to embrace? As he approached their table, time seemed to pause, and Emma felt her resolve waver for the very first time tonight. Emma's heart raced as the figure from her past drew closer. It was Samuel, her high school nemesis, the embodiment of every doubt and flaw she had ever perceived in herself. As he approached, the vibrant cafe faded into the background and the air grew thick with tension. "Emma, is that really you?" His voice dripped with a mix of surprise and mockery. Memories flooded back, his taunts, the laughter of his friends at her expense, the feelings of inadequacy that had clouded her teenage years. "Yeah, it's me," Emma replied, her voice clipped and defensive. She could feel Lucas's presence beside her, grounding yet distant, a reminder of her newfound courage. This moment threatened to unravel everything she had worked to build with him in the last few hours. "Oh, wow," Samuel said, leaning over the table, his gaze landing on the scattered sketches. "These are interesting. You're still drawing, huh?" A rush of indignation surged inside her. Emma felt the weight of her insecurities rise to the surface, but she quickly intervened, harnessing the energy that had blossomed earlier with Lucas. "They're designs, actually, for a project I'm working on." She pulled herself up, standing firm in her identity as an artist. "Right. Well, whatever floats your boat. He shrugged, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Emma noticed the way Lucas stiffened beside her, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. She sensed his protective instincts, but she didn't want to appear weak. Emma had spent too long letting others define her. Actually, it's more than just a boat, Emma responded, surprising herself with her boldness. It's about creating a deeper connection through storytelling. As she spoke, she noticed a flicker of confusion cross Samuel's face. He seemed unprepared for her confidence. Was he really that ignorant of who she had become? Sure. Whatever you say, Emma. Just be careful not to get lost in your own head, okay? He turned to leave, but the resentment simmered within her. Don't you think it's time you stopped underestimating me? Emma said, her voice steady. A brief moment of shock registered on his face before he chuckled, as if to dismiss her claim. Keep dreaming, Emma. That's all you've ever done. As he walked away, Emma felt an unexpected rush of empowerment. With each step he took, the cloud of his presence dissipated further, leaving a sense of dissolution of her former fears. It felt as if she had shed an old skin, opening up space for her honesty and ambition to breathe. The moment hung thick in the air, and she turned to Lucas, who was observing her intently, admiration illuminating his expression. That was incredible, he said softly, a proud smile breaking through. You took control. I can't believe I stood up to him. The disbelief in her voice masked a flicker of realization within. Perhaps that moment had not just been about Samuel, but about the evolution of her own self-worth. As they resumed their conversation, the ideas they had exchanged earlier seemed fortified by her confrontation. Emma felt fortified, and the prospect of launching a collaborative project with Lucas now resonated deeper than before. She could and would create something meaningful. But a sinister thought lurked at the edge of her mind. Samuel's words echoed ominously, wrapping around her ambitions like a vine. Could she truly succeed in a world that still held remnants of old doubts? Pushing past her inner turmoil, Emma took a deep breath. Lucas, I think I'm ready to dive into this partnership. I want to make this work. His eyes lit up, and just as she experienced a surge of hope, she saw a doubt flicker across his face that mirrored her own apprehensions. Are you sure, Emma? Because this is going to demand everything we have. Just as the electricity of his words danced in the air between them, Emma caught a glimpse of Samuel through the cafe window, watching them with an inscrutable expression. The confrontation hadn't ended. Would she have the strength to maintain her growth in the face of his lingering shadow? Emma steeled herself against the uncertainty, ready to confront whatever came next, aware that success might require facing deeper fears within her personal history. As she turned back to Lucas, the weight of their emerging partnership settled around her, a commitment that could very well redefine her future. But as the adrenaline from their exchange subsided, she could not shake the feeling that darker clouds loomed ahead. The moment of truth was on the horizon, and it would demand the fiercest fight yet. Emma felt the tension swell within her. The stakes were remarkably high, and she could no longer afford to back down. The days that followed the encounter with Samuel felt like a whirlwind for Emma. Each morning, she awoke with the weight of unresolved tension pressing down on her chest. While her courage had sparked something within her, the small flame of empowerment flickered under the onslaught of her ingrained doubts. She needed to be strategic about moving forward. In the quiet hours of her apartment, Emma spread her sketches across the floor, a mosaic of ideas and concepts for the project she was ready to undertake with Lucas. Each design was imbued with fragments of her creative spirit, but she felt stuck, oscillating between inspiration and fear. What if her ideas fell flat? What if Lucas saw her struggles and changed his mind? Determination coursed through her veins as she stared at the sketches. No more hiding. She was an artist. Every line she drew represented progress, not perfection. Still, she doubted if that progress could withstand the scrutiny she imagined from the world outside and, horror of horrors, from Samuel. She had faced him once. Could she do it again if he provoked her? The following weekend, she met Lucas at a local park, an open space that felt both liberating and constricting. They sat on a bench, the sun casting playful shadows around them while a gentle breeze stirred the leaves. "I've been thinking about our project," Emma began hesitantly. "I want to explore the concept of storytelling through design more deeply." His eyes sparkled with interest. "What are you envisioning?" Emma demonstrated a newfound bravado, speaking animatedly, detailing how she hoped to intertwine personal narratives with visual elements. Each idea brought a glimmer of excitement, but the undercurrent of vulnerability pulsed steadily throughout. As Lucas provided constructive feedback, a blend of enthusiasm mixed with practical considerations, Emma felt her confidence swelling. They debated the viability of her ideas, and he challenged her assumptions. Through this discourse, Emma noticed a change. She became less defensive and more engaged. Every suggestion beckoned her to rethink deeply rooted beliefs about her artistic capabilities. "Why hesitate?" Lucas asked, peering at her with curiosity. "You have such a unique perspective to share." The hesitation still tethered to her heart felt heavy, threatening to drag her back into the depths of self-doubt. I guess I worry I'm still that timid girl in high school. What if I fail?" "Everyone starts somewhere." His voice held a sincerity that calmed her. "What matters is that you're willing to try. We can build something together, and I'll support you." That simple assurance birthed a ripple of hope. Emma acknowledged the power of vulnerability. Sharing her concerns had opened a door, and she realized that confronting Samuel wasn't about battle. It was about claiming her space in this world. Breathing through the tension, she nodded, feeling an inner resolve begin to solidify. As they wrapped up their discussion, Lucas's phone buzzed with an incoming text, drawing his attention momentarily. Emma seized the silence, her thoughts racing. She had the chance to enact meaningful change, a pursuit that was about more than mere avoidance of failure. This was mastery, the ownership of her narrative. Suddenly, a familiar figure approached from a distance, a shadow creeping toward the light of her emerging confidence. Samuel ambled over, his smirk unmistakable. Even in his proximity, Emma felt the stirrings of a nascent strength, ready to rise. The urge to retreat gripped her momentarily, but she fought back. Today would not be a repeat of the past. Regardless of the ghosts that haunted her, Emma was no longer just an artist. She was a force capable of navigating storms. She locked eyes with Samuel, and this time she didn't flinch. The moment hung, pregnant with unspoken tension. Would she be brave enough to engage, to reclaim her power yet again? Her heart raced with anticipation, not just of confrontation, but of actual empowerment, balanced precariously on the edge of self-discovery. Emma had come too far to turn back now. As she prepared for what would unfold, a steely determination settled over her. It was time to face the reflection of her past, no longer defined by it. What lay ahead would test her resolve in ways she could not yet anticipate, but she was ready to embrace whatever challenge came next. The battle for her identity was far from over, and she sensed that an even greater challenge loomed just ahead. Would she emerge not merely as an artist, but as a storyteller capable of changing the narrative entirely? Emma felt a surge of energy as she faced Samuel, a confrontation brewing that she had anticipated yet dreaded. To her surprise, Samuel's expression shifted, his smirk faltering as he sensed the unfamiliar resolve radiating from her. She took a breath, steadied her voice, and chose her words carefully. "What do you want, Samuel?" The question hung in the air, vibrating with unyielding power. She felt the eyes of strangers around her, aware they were the silent spectators of her reclamation. Samuel opened his mouth, hesitated, but then merely shrugged. "Just checking how the artist is holding up." Emma clenched her fists, a mix of anger and confusion tracing through her veins. The old Emma might have reacted defensively, but instead, she squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of past encounters melting away. "I'm doing better than you think," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm working on an exciting project, and I'm proud of what I'm creating." His laughter was derisive, but she didn't allow it to spill into her resolve. "Exciting? Is that what you call doodles on a page?" The words cut deeper than she anticipated, but Emma anchored herself in the calm that Lucas had inspired within her. "Doodles have stories, Samuel," she declared, surprising herself with the firmness of her tone. "They have depth and can spark connection." She realized, in that moment, that her commitment to her art had transformed it from a mere hobby into a vessel for her voice. This truth washed over her, finally a revelation that forced her to confront the narrative she'd let Samuel dictate for too long. Samuel glared, albeit with a touch of uncertainty now, as if he were facing a stranger. She had changed. Perhaps he saw the flicker of authenticity that had ignited within her. Excuses slipped away, leaving only an intimidating clarity in its path. She recognized now that her worth may not be defined by his opinion, and it liberated parts of her she had long buried. "Art speaks louder than words, and it's time I let it do the talking," Emma stated. The weight of her past grievances began to feel less burdened. She felt ready to step forward into fresh territory, to show not just Samuel, but herself, the strength she had developed through vulnerability and honesty. Disarming Samuel didn't mean obliterating him. It meant setting her boundaries and regaining control over her narrative. The brief encounter transformed into a canvas upon which she painted her own truths. Emma turned away from him, feeling a sense of release, and glanced back at Lucas, who watched with an encouraging smile, pride illuminating his features. With each step away from Samuel, Emma felt as if she were shedding the skin of inhibition and filling the spaces with confidence. Yet even as her internal battle shifted into a victory, her thoughts were already racing ahead into the unknown territory Lucas had suggested. What would it look like to bring her personal stories to life through design? How could she weave narrative threads into her art in ways that might impact others? In the days that followed, Emma immersed herself in an exploration of her past, sifting through memories to gather inspiration. She visited places that resonated with her, childhood haunts, dimly lit stages where she once felt alive among the soft glow of spotlights. Each corner she turned unfurled new ideas, new narratives surfacing with every brushstroke of inspiration. Yet shadows still lingered. Failure echoed, taunting her with familiar feelings of inadequacy. What if all this unraveling of emotion resulted in nothing substantial? What if Samuel was right after all? The doubts crept in deviously, but she fought them back. This time, she vowed, she wouldn't shrink. The project with Lucas was not only a professional venture, it was her transformation from a tentative artist to a storyteller capable of bearing her soul. As a new dawn broke, Emma stood at her easel, staring at the blank surface before her. The canvas was daunting, yet inviting, an empty universe for her visions. She dipped her brush into vibrant colors, each stroke imbued with stories waiting to be unveiled. And as the first layer of paint began to dry, a shiver of uncertainty coursed through her. Would this canvas hold her truth? Could her deep-seated fears find a place within this work? The thought lingered in the air, an unanswered question igniting her desire for one last transformation before revealing her work to the world. Then, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she received a text from Lucas, igniting another wave of anticipation. "I can't wait to see what you've created. Ready to show me?" Emma felt her heart race yet again, a mix of excitement tinged with vulnerability. This was the moment that could define her journey, reshaping her narrative in ways she had only begun to understand. Would she reveal the essence of her evolution, or would she falter in the face of scrutiny? The challenge beckoned. She took one last look at her canvas, determination coiling in her gut as she prepared to take the plunge, knowing the power of her art now resided in her hands. The moment awaited. What she would reveal could alter everything. Emma stood in front of her completed canvas, a masterpiece that encapsulated her journey of self-discovery over the past months. Every stroke of vibrant color represented not only her evolution, but also her commitment to embracing vulnerability. This was no mere design. This was her story, a tapestry woven from threads of fear, hope, and newfound courage. As she prepared for her meeting with Lucas, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety coursed through her. Would he see the depth in her work? Would he recognize the risks she had taken? More importantly, would he validate the internal transformation she had undergone since forging her path toward artistry and storytelling? Meeting him at the local studio felt electric. The air thrummed with potential. She could feel the energy push her forward. As she entered, Lucas greeted her with an enthusiastic smile, immediately easing the tension coiling within her. "Wow, I've been looking forward to this," he said, scanning the studio space. "I can't wait to see what you've come up with." With a deep breath, Emma unveiled her canvas. The colors exploded in a riot of emotion, depicting a chair that echoed stories, design elements woven with snippets of her past, the laughter of family dinners, the whispers of childhood dreams, and the warmth of enduring relationships. It was not only a sturdy piece of furniture, but a living narrative, inviting connection and conversation. Lucas stepped closer, eyes widening in marvel. "This is incredible, Emma. You've captured so much emotion and uniqueness here. I can feel the layers of your experience." A rush of validation bloomed inside her. For the first time, her apprehensions began to dissolve, and pride took their place. She was an artist, and Lucas's words confirmed what she had come to believe. She belonged among those narratives she had been afraid to bring to life. "But," he continued, retaining that candid demeanor, "this could go further. What if we introduced an interactive element, something that encourages people to engage with it physically, maybe a removable cover, something tactile? It could open discussions about storytelling that transcends just the visual." Emma's heart raced. The thought of exploring deeper dimensions aligned perfectly with the core of her project. Their conversation flowed, animating the gravity of possibilities. The earlier insecurities she had felt transformed into an exhilarating energy, fueled by where this project could lead. As she and Lucas broke down the details, brainstorming together, Emma felt the last remnants of her doubts fall away. Talking with Lucas had ignited a sense of collaboration that elevated her art. The prospect of learning and growing alongside someone with a shared vision was liberating. This was the very essence of storytelling: connection. Weeks passed, and as their project developed, so did Emma's confidence. She actively sought out opportunities to share her work, presenting it at small gatherings and inviting feedback from peers and family alike. Each response planted further seeds of courage, and though there were critiques, Emma learned to view them not as rejections, but as avenues for growth. Then came the moment that tested all she had achieved. She received an invitation to showcase their joint work at the local artisan market, an opportunity that held potential exposure for her designs and blossoming career. Faces from her past swam through her mind, but she pushed them aside. She had conquered Samuel's taunting words. This was her chance to prove she had the power to shape her narrative. The event day arrived, and with it came the electric atmosphere of enthusiastic chatter, laughter, and creativity. Emma's heart raced. She set up their booth, adorned with their pieces, each item reflecting not just artistry, but stories waiting to unfold. Lucas stood beside her, ready to support and uplift as they greeted passers-by with an infectious energy. As visitors engaged with their work, Emma found herself weaving tales of her journey, stories of resilience, connection, and the power of creativity. Every interaction fortified her confidence, validating not only her artistic vision, but her right to carve out a space in this expansive world of storytelling. Later that evening, amidst the applause and positive reviews, Emma turned to Lucas, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you. Your belief in me transformed this experience." As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and lavender, Emma felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had faced her fears and emerged fortified, anchored by the confidence generated through her art and the connection nurtured between her and Lucas. Emma had not only regained her sense of identity, she had redefined it. Now, she stood not merely as a graphic designer, but as an artist and storyteller, poised on the brink of a promising future. This was her moment, a personal triumph over doubt and insecurity, a realization of her potential. As she savored the evening, the path ahead glimmered with possibilities, each step leading her further into a vibrant tapestry of her own making. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.